We have learned a number of important points so far about online missionary work. The first is personal conversion. When the online missionaries and guest bloggers from the ward, of which there can be as many as we can handle to help follow up with, are given the assignment to write a post, it is much like being asked to speak in sacrament meeting or prepare a lesson. There is a direction to Scripture study. There is a deadline and an urgency. As the online missionaries and guest bloggers have taken the time to personally study, ponder, and formulate their thoughts and feelings, their testimonies have deepened. Personal conversion and thus confidence for sharing the gospel face-to-face have been greatly enhanced by the missionaries' and guests' work online. They have been able to articulate these testimonies. Online, they refine and reformulate their statements before they touch send. We have a growing sense that this is particularly true among members of the church age 14 through 25. Most of them are online anyway. And if we don't call them to serve as online missionaries, they will find other things to do online. In many ways, the call to be online missionaries is a calling to share the gospel in their native tongue. We realized only a handful of youth during their teenage years have regular opportunities to share their testimonies with non-members. We felt that asking them to serve as digital missionaries was a perfect way to help them have regular missionary opportunities and also help them learn how to better articulate their beliefs. To test this theory, we called Jackson Haight, a high school sophomore, to be a digital missionary. He was mentored closely by the digital mission leadership and started to write posts for one of the blogs. He said it was hard in the beginning because he had never had to put his testimony into words that would be viewed by thousands. He also knew he had to make sure he wasn't sharing false doctrine. He spent hours reading the Scriptures and the words of the living prophets to make sure his own words were correct. He worked hard to express his beliefs in concise writing that could be understood by a wide audience. One of his posts, for example, was shared more than 700 times through social media and viewed by thousands. Through this process, Jackson found that the messages of his posts began to flow more easily into his everyday conversations with friends. His confidence in sharing the gospel grew. In September 2012, he baptized and later conferred the Aaronic priesthood upon his good friend Keith and ordained him to the office of a priest. In October 2012, we developed a fourth blog named youngandmormon.com. This blog is now being run under the direction of the Stake Young Men and Young Women presidencies and the digital mission team. When Jackson shared his experience with the Stake Youth Council, the Spirit was powerful as he explained how he had been pondering the Word for himself. Other members of the council have since been called as digital missionaries and have committed to participate regularly on the blog. Jackson Haight has truly been an example of the Scripture, "Whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it." When Jackson is called on a full-time mission, he truly will be fluent in online and personal languages. Second, our online missionaries have found it quite easy to invite friends who are not yet active members of the church to serve with them, asking them to contribute to their blogs as they serve. Often this entails sending to non-member friends a draft of what they have written, asking for feedback before they post it to their blog. Their friends invariably are very helpful, and of course this gives the digital missionaries ways to share the gospel with their friends in ways that otherwise would not be easy. This has been so effective for the quality of writing and for sharing the gospel that we have, in fact, made this a sort of requirement before posting. We could fill a book of stories about how sharing the gospel via blogging creates many opportunities to ask friends to help us, as described in Chapter 3. Third, I have noted several times that because we can't predict in advance who will and will not be interested in the gospel, the more people we meet, the more we can invite, and the more people we will find for the missionaries to teach. I am fortunate because at work I meet a lot of new people. Others of us, however, find themselves in personal and professional situations in which they have few opportunities to meet new people. Many faithful, full-time mothers with young children at home find it hard to meet new friends by the very nature of their profession, for example. Whether they live in Orem, Odessa, or Orlando, most of their friends are members of the church, and this makes it quite hard to do missionary work. The opportunity to serve as online missionaries and guest bloggers gives them many more avenues to meet new people. A friend who has built an active blog reminded me that the missionaries need to knock on door after door in a trial and error way in order to find people who will talk about the church. In contrast, those who are sharing the gospel online are able to see more clearly who is interested and who isn't, simply by studying the questions that people are asking. Fourth, we concluded that working alone can be discouraging and draining at times. Online missionaries need to feel a part of a team, and it worked well for us to organize the digital mission by zones. Our zone leaders tried to hold zone conferences monthly in which they could train one another, share inspiring experiences, solve common problems, and follow up with the deadlines of posts written by the missionaries and the ever-growing group of guest bloggers. And finally this. As a signal travels over longer and longer distances on a wire, its power attenuates or diminishes, and its clarity gets garbled by static. In contrast, the clarity and the power of the Spirit of God does not diminish by distance, even if your new friends live on the other side of the world. If you write online through the power of the Spirit and love of the Lord, the new friends that you'll meet will be able to feel that Spirit and that love as if they were speaking with you face to face. Of this I testify.